So feel free to gather in other places if you have to. But just to finish up that discussion with the community leaders, the other thing that we had was to ensure that you were updating your user survey questions. So if you're listening or if you're following up, please make sure that your project teams have looked at the user survey results that have come, and if you have to make changes to questions, please feel free to do that. There is a deadline that's shared on the mailing list. Make sure to add that here. Um, and if you have any questions for that, bring it to the openstack-tc room, the openstack-tc channel on IRC. Anything else anybody else wants to note before we move to the next topic? All right. Sounds like no. Let's go ahead uh, to the next topic, which is runtimes and project testing guidelines. This question came up in multiple formats, so I think there's going to be multiple discussion items here, and I think different folks had different topics that came into this. So feel free to take it from there. I think one of the first questions we had was if we are currently testing with MariaDB and MySQL versions that are shipped by the distros, and so this means whatever shipped by the focal release, it was what was being tested with all the project test jobs, and we found that the latest versions of MySQL require changes in OpenStack code. And so that brought about the discussion of testing with more bleeding versions, and where should those tests be running. Um, and I don't think we had an opinion expressed as such. We just wanted to just brainstorm that and see if there is value in doing that, across the community in installation projects, in configuration management projects, etc. Dimitri, I don't remember if we made any more progress on the MariaDB collations
No,
issue.
unfortunately, we haven't so far. I was planning to do it like right after the summit, but
Okay. I just added that Etherpad that you folks put together on that. There is quite a lot of content that's there already. A lot of investigation into what each project, each repository is doing, for instance, and it's likely going to become a community goal, right?
yes, I was thinking to propose it as a committee call. So I think it's to be decided where what this community goal will sound like, basically, because there are like two main roads we can take. Uh, Either to be more strict about chart sets that are defined, or be just less strict and allow users to shoot themselves into the left, more or less.
Okay, makes sense. And this question about testing with the more recent versions came up because we were having that discussion. Do we have any opinion on you know how we should approach that?
I don't feel like it would be terribly difficult to use the MariaDB containers and reference, like, that's just how you install MariaDB on the jobs where you want to test the database upgrades or whatever.
Well, so the main issue is that given that MariaDB and well MySQL as well are changing defaults and are changing basically default char sets, there is a problem if you do upgrade MariaDB version and you do not adjust default to previous one or to whatever is set. And currently we have inconsistency in the char sets between projects. So for instance, if project doesn't have defined a default char set for their tables and they do some kind of migrations now, these migrations might or will fail if you don't do proper settings of your MySQL basically or MariaDB.
Okay. But we can test that by most of our projects will have Alembic or something similar for doing their database migrations, right? So we can add a check for that into Alembic, and that will at least flag things before it's a major before it goes into production. And then in terms of specifically how do we test the newer versions, if we're running things in a container, that would be, that way we're not relying on the distribution packages. But Jeremy wanted to say something.
Just the usual reminder that, as a project, we have tried when possible to test things as much like our users are going to be expected to deploy them as possible. And obviously that's not always doable. But, if given multiple options in how we approach testing something like this, prefer the option that will be as close as possible to what a production user deployment would look like.
Yep. I don't know that we have multiple options right now, though, right? Because 24, Ubuntu 24, I can't even remember the code name, Noble, it only has the MariaDB 10 packages. So unless I'm wrong, is there a PPA that has MariaDB 11 that we could leverage or whatever?
Yeah, so there is a repository provided by the MariaDB community, and they changed defaults in MariaDB 11.8, which is their latest LTS release. And eventually this topic raised once I tried to upgrade to it in CI, but in deployment tool CI. So it wasn't project CI, it was deployment tool, and it was failing on upgrade job basically from prior release from 11.4.
I will note that Debian Stable currently has MariaDB 11.8. So if you're running testing on Trixie, Debian 13, then that's what you'll be getting packaged by default.
So we could create a job or a set of jobs that install with the MariaDB 10 packages from Noble, run a dev stack, etc., make sure that that's fine, and then upgrade the underlying database via the MariaDB packages from the private repository, and then make sure the services run through their Alembics and start correctly, right? That's the kind of upgrade testing we're looking for.
So I guess in this context, probably I'm going too narrow right now. But if coming to charset issue, the question is if we want to mandate and ensure that we use the charset that we are expecting, and then also handle charset change from, for instance, from UTF-8 MB3 to MB4. Or we just let users do whatever they want to, and we just remove charset definitions pretty much.
Okay.
And just,
I feel like that's something we could discuss as we propose the goal. Either option is testable.
Yeah, so it's more about experience and how much control we want to put into what we deliver, more or less.
And maybe when you do, like when we got the goal, when we start doing the work, project teams would want to test these changes directly. So that's when we'd probably define how we're going to test MariaDB 11.4, right? Like it would be available with this node set, and that's what we tell project teams, and so they can just change the node set in their jobs. Or if we have to make some changes to the integrated gate or something, we'd be able to do that in one place.
Yeah, I'm not very concerned about testing, to be frank. I'm more concerned about like, yeah, what specifically we want to do, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If there's upgrade testing, I mean, would it be possible to have essentially a test vector that was generated by older MariaDB carried as a fixture, and then just basically splat that into the database and try running it on a platform that has newer MariaDB and attempt to upgrade that database as part of the test?
I think so. Sounds like that's something that we should add into the goal as well. If we were to, think about the upgrade scenarios.
Yeah, we just haven't historically had a lot of ability to test upgrades of versions of external dependencies
Yeah.
outside of OpenStack itself. And we're talking, I guess, about what happens when a user is running OpenStack and then wants to upgrade in place their distribution from a version that has older MariaDB to a version that has newer MariaDB packaged, and then what's going to happen when they restart services on it, I guess. I mean, you could also emulate that with actually doing an operating system upgrade during the job, though that would be pretty heavyweight. You could do it by having a multi-node job that has two different distro versions on two different nodes and generating the database on one, and then SCPing it over to the other and sourcing it into MariaDB and trying to run the service there. I mean, there are a lot of options for it, but they're all kind of ugly and hackish because I guess, again, we're talking about testing software that we aren't producing.
I'm not even sure that we need such deep testing of. So if we are like defining community goal as we want all projects to have a char set to be explicitly defined in Alembic, and we want to leverage Alembic migrations to change these char sets or like update them, then probably we don't need to care about like MariaDB upgrades at all. Because it's up to like deployment tools, or it's up to users to like handle that anyway.
And that raises an even simpler option, which is if all we really care about is the changes in default character sets, then like we can definitely run MariaDB with one configuration and then stop everything and then run everything again after changing the MariaDB configuration to use whatever character set options are the default in the new version, without necessarily being dependent on trying to run multiple versions of MariaDB.
Yeah, right.
Julia?
Did a version of character set get removed from MariaDB across an upgrade?
No, they did just introduce a different option, which kind of messes not only char sets, but it messes collations basically. So collations defined previously are not like respected. So they're not removing it, but they're changing defaults basically.
So they're changing defaults. So if we're relying upon defaults, any default, then
some projects, but not others.
This is very much along the line, same thing Ironic had to deal with ages, or I guess a couple years back, where we just went ahead and had to define the character set to use, which was, we knew what we needed. And yeah, at that point, it's a OS problem, because changing the default doesn't mean that you're changing the default the way it's interpreting or using the database. That character set gets stamped on the table itself and inside the schema, and you have to dump and reload the table at that point to change it. Actually, dump the table, change it, change in the load file, and reload the load file. Or alter table and let it dump and load internally.
Yeah.
Dmitry, just to understand. Dmitry, just to understand the scope of the scope of the modification we need. This is a problem with upgrading, or is it just a problem with greenfields? Because say that I'm just upgrading to Gazpacho, then even if I'm upgrading my OS, I would still have my existing tables, right? So that it would use like a different collation, but that's fine. And because if the projects didn't really specify the collation, then that won't be a problem, right? So here the problem, that's what Julia said about stamping it, right?
So it kind of will be a problem because if project doesn't default collation and default change, or char set, and it changes, then you try to run a migration. So for instance, you like alter table in Oslo or in Alembic migrations, and it will fail because collations of your new defaults doesn't match with old defaults, and it could be like foreign key, for example. And then it will just.
I see. Okay, so that's okay. I see. That's because
And you
if the
have like
budget,
different tables having different collations depending on each other, and it just doesn't fly.
Oh, okay, so for example, on Flamingo, I was using a table with collation MB4, I think that's the name, and then it changed. Yeah. So it went. It was having GLCI collation for that table, but then it sees that when I'm trying to add another field, then the collation changed or should be changed, and then it. Okay, okay, I see. I see the issue then. Okay,
So
and
it should be the same for like well, it should be an expected one. I would put it this way. So I checked, like for instance, Nova has in one places like UTF-8, in some places Latin 1, but these tables are like fine to have it because they're like designed that way. But if like project expects them to be the same and they're dependent on each other, they should be the same char set and same collation.
I see. Thanks.
To go back to the idea of like being explicit and not relying on the defaults, it is worth noting that what Ironic has chosen is a deprecated option, and it will be going away in a future version of MariaDB and MySQL. So it's not as simple as just like, this is what we're going to use and it's going to work forever. They're already, so that specifically, for example, the 3-byte UTF-8 character sets are going away eventually. I don't know that they've put a date on it, but they have both said we're going to delete this at some point, which means everyone needs to be using 4-byte UTF-8. And so it does help to be careful around what specific options you're choosing, just to avoid as many of those future issues as possible. And of course, we can't predict the future. So, informed decisions are important there, as well as being able to update and pivot in the future, even if you're not relying on defaults.
Yeah, I think that's a great data point. I think we didn't choose 4-byte because it wasn't universally available in some of the distros yet when we hit this. So given they're now saying 3-byte is deprecated, well, great. Now we're gonna have to work through that. Yippee!
Eventually, it also highlights another issue, kind of, which will be coming from next LTS release. So right now, just UTF-8, which is used for most of the projects which are defined it, well, except Ironic, I guess it's the only exception right now. So UTF-8 is an alias for 3-byte UTF-8, but they want to change an alias to be for the 4-byte UTF-8. So if you just define UTF-8, it will mean different things based on different MariaDB versions.
And I think that's how we hit that specifically originally.
Yeah, that could be. And I think that change is part of the deprecation process, right? They're saying we can't have the alias referred to something that's deprecated. And so it's all part, it's all part of this related cleanup.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Tony, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to say that I feel like the topic we're discussing is runtimes and project testing. I feel like we've covered that aspect of this particular piece of work. We're now more in the goal definition and what that should be like, which is a little bit not quite what we're here to discuss right now. So I don't want to prematurely put the kibosh on this, but I feel like we're running out of our 30-minute allotment here, and we should move on to the rest of the topics.
Agreed. Okay. So yeah, we'll see as the goal shapes up as to what this testing will look like, and we can ask the question on whether we got to change the runtimes around that for to accommodate whatever the goal is suggesting. So let's move on. I think the next question was going to be about we're currently having CentOS stream testing and Rocky Linux in the mix, and we started talking with the Alma Linux contributors to see if we can have some Alma Linux testing as well. And the question came up as to what is it that OpenStack's trying to do, and what is our testing goal as such, and if we have clearly defined that, and what is the purpose of searching for these alternatives and such. And so there's a little bit of continuation of the discussion from the last hour. So does that ring a bell, and does anybody have anything to say about that? I actually have lost the pulse on how the Alma Linux work is going. I know we had a volunteer to try and do some stuff. Yeah.
So Alma Linux, it's there in the Zool test label set, and it was largely driven by Michael, I think. And I believe Cola is now running some testing on it. I don't know if any testing has happened beyond that space. So as far as I know, it is working for Cola, but I don't. I don't
well,
know
actually, we haven't added anything in Cola using
you
Alma
haven't?
Linux.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's like I think I volunteered to do the disk image builder patch, which sort of we merged and then added the labels, but I haven't done anything else. Well, there's the DevStack patch because
maybe that's...
I think it's like originally the goal was to make usage of the nodes that are not v3 nodes, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah. So Alma, unlike Rocky and unlike CentOS and RHEL, compiles the core packages for the distro for both x86 v2 and x86 v3. The other distros are only v3, which limits the places where you can boot and run those images. And so one of the ideas with Alma was that maybe we can run it on all the, and I thought, and I guess maybe that's why I thought it was being used, because
that was
there
the
were
main motivation
problems with that where you have to opt into a specific repo set or something. Anyway, I guess I was mistaken about that. But that is one of the potential upsides to Alma Linux, is that it has fewer hardware requirements and can run in more places potentially.
Agreed. Yeah, so I think the next steps there would be for the work that's going on to actually complete, and probably Cola or OpenStack Ansible would start using these images in their tests. And we should probably point this out to the in the FIPS goal rewriting, and try and lead folks to probably consider that as well.
And then I guess it's worth noting on line 107 currently, I'm quoted, the idea here is, with OpenStack's stable releases and now extended maintenance and so on, the idea is that we can continue to test things in some capacity for a fairly long period of time, which is why other options like Fedora has kind of fallen off because it updates so quickly that it's hard for us to stay on that treadmill. And then it also goes away before we're done trying to use it. And so it's kind of like a problem on both ends. And so the ideal, at least from my perspective, kind of thinking about platforms, is platforms that exist long enough where it justifies the effort spent to onboard them, which, it's usually non-zero to add a new distro release effort. And then they stick around long enough so that we're able to take advantage of them through the life of an OpenStack release, and that kind of is where the balance comes from. And that's why we don't test with the non-LTS Ubuntu releases, and we don't test with Fedora. And I think a lot of the balance there is not appropriate for the community where it's at today with terms of effort and so on. Anyway, I'll pass it over to Jeremy.
Yeah, just a reminder, the stuff that we discussed about CentOS Stream over back in the FIPS goal section of the call, the discussion that I had basically put me in the same location as Book War, and we talked through a lot of the CentOS Stream stability concerns, and it was mostly related to this particular topic. Why is OpenStack not using CentOS upstream, or why is it viewed as being unstable, etc. So for me, the revelations that came out of that discussion were that we've been trying to start using CentOS Stream too early in its development cycle, and that the CentOS community doesn't view it as stable until probably around when the .1 point release of RHEL for the equivalent CentOS Stream train is publicly available.
Tony, go for it.
Speaking with my previously red hat on, we have two conflicting goals, right? Part of it is the CentOS Stream organization have made that statement, and totally agree with them that Stream isn't really stable and healthy until the 0.1 release. But part of the reason Red Hat wanted Stream support there is to facilitate development around what's coming up for their Red Hat OpenStack. Oh shit, it's changed its name now. It's anyway, OpenStack services on OpenShift, or whatever it's called now. So there's a difference there between what different parts within the organization want, and yeah, I feel like that's something that Red Hat would need to solve.
Yeah, Jay.
Yeah, it's I think you said something there that I want to highlight, which is that inherently, like, the goals are kind of almost in conflict with each other, right? Like the CentOS and the RHEL folks want us using those platforms because they are representative of future RHEL. They want our help QAing their stuff, and sort of, at least in the conversation I had, sounded like they wanted kind of our help QAing it early, so that, they're viewing OpenStack plus an enterprise Linux OS as like a single deliverable that we're all working together on. And that's true to a certain degree, but from an OpenStack standpoint, I would rather us have something that's truly non-changing, that we can answer the question, did OpenStack break, or did platform break, much more easily than we've been able to in the past with CentOS. So it feels a little bit like maybe trying to utilize our CI testing resources to get better tested versions of CentOS, which is kind of proto rel. So I kind of feel like maybe the technical solution we go down and like the philosophically okay solution might not be the same thing, because it doesn't really sit well with me that OpenStack as a project would have its time used to help QA test a commercial distribution.
I mean, I agree with Jay on the fact that that's two different use cases. At least for Nova, I mean, what you mentioned, Jay, is valid, but that's not only a company thing. Like, I can count the many times during the Nova discussions when someone was saying, okay, like I have this kind of new hardware enablement stuff that I would like Nova to support. Is it okay if you accept my spec? And usually we say, okay, but actually, do you have any kind of kernel support for that specific feature? Do you have any kind of distro support for that one? And then they say, yeah, for example, for libvirt, yeah, maybe in the next libvirt release, then we'll have that. Okay, fair enough. So that's why, for example, with Nova, we have different jobs. We have some kind of, like most of the jobs want to use Noble just to make sure that basically it works for the existing ones. But we have another job that's named Nova Next. And usually we definitely prefer to have some specific job testing new releases, for example, for QEMU and libvirt. Because we also want to make sure that, for example, for some specific new feature, we can test it. So I think that's two different points. Of course, for most of the jobs, Alma could be good for that, because indeed for the hardware that we have, for the nodes that we have, those could be okay. But I understand why, for example, CentOS would be nice, because usually we have new releases from libvirt, we have new releases from QEMU, we have new kernel versions, and at least for Nova, if we have a way to have some experimental jobs, or like some other jobs that we could use with them, it would be nice.
Amy?
All right, so where the conversations with both Jay and Jeremy ended up, as far as I'm aware, is the offer from the CentOS folks to run a third-party CI and do the testing on their CI. So that's not using our resources, that's using their resources, and it's being investigated. I haven't heard any updates since then. But then I just got home late last week and I've been sick as a dog. So I will continue to follow up on the stream side of things, but they're willing to do it in their CI, not our CI. Just
Yeah,
for the record.
I also noted in the FIPS goal section of the Etherpad, similarly, that the potential exists there for that to be done as a third-party CI effort by vendors of commercial OpenStack distributions who are interested in that working, Red Hat primarily. And so, if the expectation is that that needs to be done on CentOS Stream 10, then they're potentially in a good position to do that downstream as a third-party CI for FIPS testing and for general CentOS Stream 10 testing.
Yeah. Tony? You broke up. Is that just me, or can anyone else hear Tony?
Not just you.
Okay. All right, he's muted now.
Hopefully Australia didn't just get hit by a meteor.
All right. I think he can fill us in. And I think we're a little bit over time for this topic, so let's actually move to the next one. I'll try to see if I can summarize this and take some AIs with it. Let's move to the next one. The last one of for today is on SIGs, and this question came up during one of the TC meetings, so I thought we could bring it here. There's going to be a lot of work to do to actually refresh this list. But if you're looking at this list, I think we have a lot of SIGs that have actually switched from being active to advisory, if you want, in the current terminology. There's also SIGs that were probably advisory that are no longer available. I mean, the SIG chairs for one may have moved on, and they're not actively participating in the community, or the SIGs may not be required anymore because we've stopped doing something, and so on. So I think there's for sure an ask to get this updated, so that community members are not confused when they need to get some work done in order to collaborate. That's what the intent of doing this here was. And if there is anybody that wants to volunteer to do this work, it'd be greatly appreciated. Or we could, as we discussed earlier, piecemeal this as well. Any opinions? Yeah, Jeremy, go for it.
More just from my perspective as a SIG chair for multiple SIGs, I'll say now the TACT SIG and the security SIG are technically active, but I would welcome some co-chairs or all-out replacements for myself if anyone is interested in those things. Just propose a change to the governance SIGs repo, adding yourself as a chair, and give me a heads up. I'll gladly +1 it.
Yeah, it looks like you have a volunteer. Thanks, Jay, and thanks, Jeremy. I think this also came up in the context of there were some SIG repos that folks wanted to update, and these repos were, seemingly not maintained anymore because the SIG chairs were out, and we didn't have any way to contact them. Specifically, I think this was around the Ansible SIG. I'm not sure if that issue got resolved and if we got some more maintainers added.
It's not about the Ansible on its own.
Oh.
In Ansible SIG, we have sort of different problem, but it's not that information is outdated. No, it's different story. I would assume maybe eventually there is under API SIG sort of the problem because technically the SIG is dead. Public cloud SIG, we try to still, maybe the information is outdated, but the SIG is alive. It just doesn't happen in the normal way.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what I can do is I can just propose a patch that sets the status to unknown on all of these where I know the chairs are not active, and we can send out a mailing list notification asking for volunteers for these SIGs or for the existing chairs to actually come tell us that it's not that they're still active and so on. Yeah, Tony, that's great. Thank you. Thanks for taking that AI. Hey, Jeremy, go for it.
Maybe also worth pointing out in this context, there has been some very recent discussion about the possibility of trying to merge some of these SIGs. I know the scientific SIG and the other operationally related SIGs are potential candidates for working more closely together under a more general OpenStack operators umbrella. So yeah, that's something worth considering, is that some of these SIGs may be not super active, or moderately active on their own, but could be very active if they combined their efforts.
Oh yeah, time zones are the eternal villain at the end of everything. Cool. Yeah, that's a neat suggestion, Jeremy. We can ask in the same thread if SIGs had to be combined, which ones would make sense.
I can include that.
Awesome. You're breaking up again, Tony. Gosh, are you guys seeing a storm?
I don't know. I was just saying I can include somebody else. We can help that happen.
Awesome. That broke up quite a bit, but I think I got the gist of what you're saying. Thanks. All right. And Dimitri volunteers to be part of the Ansible SIG as well. That's nice. All right. Anything else about SIGs here today?
Just going to encourage Tony to add his comment to the Etherpad if he can.
Yeah, that'd
since
be
it was
great.
hard for us to make out.
All right. Thank you. And I think that is a wrap on today's topics. We have a full agenda for the Friday, but we also have a couple of parking lot topics as well. Hi, Kendall. I was going to ask if you'd want to, bring up your topic now.
Yeah,
Sure.
it
Perfect.
definitely won't take 15 minutes. Hopefully everyone can hear me.
Yes.
So as you may all have noticed, I regularly reach out to the mailing list to gather projects for the universities that we partner with to get in front of students and get more student engagement in OpenStack. So because I often end up being the bottleneck with regards to like timing and the short windows, I figured one of the ways to alleviate that would be to have kind of a ongoing list of projects or mentors. So I created an Etherpad, which you can see on line 130, to kind of collect those. And as part of that, because we all know information gets stale, to do periodic check-ins, probably coupled with PTGs, just to like refresh that list. And if you are able to be a mentor for, one semester, that's great. You can put your name on the list. If not, you can take your name back off the list. So I am 100% open to feedback on any of this, but I wanted to kind of make the process easier for you all and also me at the same time, selfishly. But yeah.
Yeah, no, this actually came up in the Manila room the other day. Actually yesterday when we were doing retrospective, and somebody asked, how can I be a mentor? How are you guys
Yeah.
discovering interns?" And I was like, well, we know somebody. So thanks.
Yeah,
That's a good.
I know a person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So exactly. So like, because historically, I reach out to people that I know have mentored before, and occasionally try to get some new folks involved as well. But I think something like this would be good for those that are looking to get involved that maybe haven't been before. And I can add resources to this Etherpad as well with like examples of previous project proposals so that folks kind of know what sort of topics students are interested in and that sort of thing. But I mostly just wanted to get initial feedback on this idea, and then I will also circulate it to the OpenStack mailing list as well. Crickets mean I did it correctly, as the interpretation I'm going to take.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thanks for putting it together. I was going to ask as a follow-up is if this work in any way relates to the first contact SIG, because you are going to get a question about whether that SIG is active and what that's doing, kinds.
Yeah, it largely hasn't been active in a while. I think it's still a good idea, but we have been less active since not doing regular since not doing regular OpenStack Upstream Institute instances along with the summits. So I'm still around and able to like help folks get started, but obviously I am nowhere near an expert in every OpenStack project. So I often rely on the folks that I know that are involved in those projects as a jumping off point.
Yeah. Spots ran a great workshop session, technical issues aside, at the summit. And that's like those sorts of efforts are still going on at our events. They just aren't necessarily happening under the first contact SIG mantle.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of like, combining things, I guess we could combine things again and restart that effort. That way, you have a running list of mentors, people that participate in these things, and not everything is going to be an internship or mentorship, right? Sometimes it's just an event where you need somebody to come speak about OpenStack, or come do a one-day workshop kind of thing. So you could draw from the same list if you'd want. If you said, all of this is one thing, it's just first contact SIG and such. Just an idea.
Yeah, I think the condensing of these efforts as much as possible makes the most sense given our small numbers at this point, but also just to keep information from getting stale.
Awesome. For now, I could help circulate this along with the summary that goes out, and specifically call this out in the TC notes.
That would be great. Yeah, I'll send a separate thread as well. But that would be spectacular. Thank you. And that's all I had.
All right. All right. Anything else from anybody else today? Oh, look at that. 10 minutes back to our times. Thank you so much for everybody for joining. See you in this room again on Friday and elsewhere in the PTG.
Take care, all.
Thanks. See ya.
Get better, Amy.